Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Nathan Cade had learned early in his career that silence was rarely empty. On Virelia Prime, the silence was more than empty. It was watchful. Every step he took across the polished landing platform seemed to echo in ways that suggested the platform itself was listening. He adjusted his jacket and swallowed, telling himself that humans had survived worse. The Virelians were waiting. Their forms were taller than most humans lean, with faces that seemed sculpted for symmetry. Their eyes shimmered silver, reflecting not light but thought, and their ears, long, tapering backward like carved ivory, moved with an awareness Nathan found disconcerting. He had been warned. Humor could be deadly here, hesitation even more so. At the far end of the platform, the High Council waited. They did not rise, did not speak, did not blink in the ways humans did. A subtle vibration hummed through the floor, syncing with the air itself. Nathan's translator implant whispered, "They are observing before you are seen." Nathan exhaled slowly. "I am here to help," he said, trying to sound confident. "You are human," the lead counselor said. Matra, as her title translated, stepped slightly forward. "We were told humans improvise." "Mostly when the best plan fails," Nathan replied. "Sometimes just for fun." Several council members flicked hands or tilted heads, their reactions almost imperceptible, but Nathan noticed. Matra did not move. She watched him, her silver eyes measuring, calculating, refusing to reveal anything. "Improvisation is dangerous," she said. "Why should we allow it?" "Because perfection alone does not win wars," Nathan said. "Sometimes unpredictability does." The silence that followed felt as heavy as gravity itself. The council's holographic map of their territory flickered to life, star systems glowing in precise lattices, colonies shining in delicate geometric patterns. Red vectors pulsed at the edges of Virelia's space, where enemy fleets were massing. Nathan's trained eyes scanned it, immediately seeing what the Virelians had not. Elegance on paper does not survive chaos in reality. "You assume your enemy will act logically," Nathan said. "They will not." "Logic fails," one officer said sharply, ears angled back in disapproval. "Exactly," Nathan said. "That is why chaos works." Probability streams shimmered above the circular command table. The Virelians had simulations layered into layers, modeling outcomes for every possible move, but none accounted for real unpredictability. Nathan stepped closer. "Let me show you," he said. He activated his own projection. Signal decoys blinked into existence, scattering across star systems. Artificial stellar flares ignited, blinding sensors. The enemy appeared confused, though only partially. The council murmured. Some voiced disapproval. Some muttered in alien tongues Nathan's translator struggled to keep pace with. Matra, however, observed silently. A glint of curiosity appeared in her silver eyes, then vanished almost immediately. "You manipulate reality for deception," she said. "This is dangerous." Nathan smiled faintly. "Yes, but the alternative is worse." The council recessed, leaving Nathan alone with Matra. He noticed small things, faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, tension in her shoulders, the way her long ears twitched as if weighing his presence. "You speak as if failure is familiar," she said quietly. "It is," Nathan replied. "Humans fail constantly. We call it experience." Her lips curved slightly, not a smile exactly, but close enough. "Optimistic," she said. "Stubborn," Nathan corrected. "Optimism usually arrives late." They studied each other in silence. Nathan realized why he had been summoned, not just as a strategist, but as a human. The Virelians needed someone who could act unpredictably, someone whose mistakes might actually save lives. By the next cycle, the enemy fleet had appeared near Virelia's border. Nathan was in the command chamber, surrounded by officers who moved as one, every gesture, every calculation synchronized. Probability layers flashed above a circular table, simulating millions of potential outcomes at speeds no human brain could comprehend without augmentation. "They are advancing earlier than expected," an officer said. Nathan's fingers danced across the interface, activating decoys and false warp signatures. "Good. That means they are nervous. Let's make them nervous enough to misstep." The enemy fleet struck first. Massive ships flared across space, angular, bristling with weapons designed to overwhelm. Nathan's stomach clenched. The first wave always felt like that, the moment when theory met reality and human lives were at stake. "Phase 1 complete," Nathan muttered. Signal ghosts scattered, artificial flares ignited. The enemy appeared to fragment, but only superficially. "They are guessing," an officer noted. "Exactly," Nathan replied softly. "Keep them guessing, make them commit mistakes." The next wave revealed a critical flaw. The enemy overextended. Nathan's human intuition told him this was the moment. He activated the secondary phase, controlled retreat beacons suggesting chaos and collapse. The enemy took the bait. "Now," Nathan whispered. Hidden Virelian vessels struck at the enemy's core with surgical precision. Chaos became control. Flawed assumptions became vulnerability. Within minutes, a fleet that had threatened thousands of worlds was retreating. Matra watched from the edge of the platform. Her composure remained, but tension in her shoulders betrayed rare vulnerability. "You have altered our doctrine," she said quietly. Nathan shrugged. "Temporarily, long-term chaos requires a different skill set." A subtle shift passed between them. Nathan realized the truth he had always known. Leadership was not about perfection. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to step into the unpredictable. As the enemy withdrew, Nathan returned to his temporary quarters. Gravity adjusted for human comfort, silence finally less oppressive. But even in calm, he felt the weight of what had occurred. He had saved lives, but at the cost of fear, doubt, and exhaustion. Matra joined him later, quietly, away from the court. "You are different from our expectations," she said. "Different humans do different things," Nathan replied, gazing out at Virelia Prime's engineered horizon. Stars were perfectly placed to calm nerves, artificial clouds moving slowly across a pale sky. "You've reminded us," she said, "that survival is not only strength, it is adaptability, and leadership is not solitude, it is burden shared." Nathan nodded. "And fear." "Information," Matra said, eyes sharp. "Useful, yes, but dangerous." They watched in silence as the planet adjusted after battle. Systems recalibrated, fleets regrouped, life stubborn and persistent continued. Nathan understood something crucial. The war was over, but the peace would demand courage almost as much as the fight itself. And someone, somewhere, would soon test the human again. Nathan exhaled, a slow, measured breath. "Good," he muttered. "I like a challenge." The next morning, the council summoned Nathan again. The planet's defenses had been reinforced, but intelligence suggested the enemy was returning faster than expected. Nathan studied the new star maps and grimly acknowledged the problem. The fleet was stretched thin. Colonies were vulnerable, and Virelia, despite its discipline, was brittle. "Your calculations are correct," Matra said, her silver eyes locked on his. "But if your plan fails, our worlds fall." Nathan met her gaze. "Then it cannot fail." It was not arrogance. It was certainty born of experience, of having faced overwhelming odds before. He would make mistakes, but he would adapt, as humans always did. The enemy fleet emerged from slip space in fractured waves, asymmetrical and aggressive, forcing Nathan to act quickly. He activated signal ghosts, ignited artificial stellar flares, and forced the enemy to misread the Virelian formation. Each misstep allowed Nathan to manipulate space itself like a chessboard, pushing the enemy where he wanted them. "They are committing to the trap," an officer said. "Good," Nathan muttered. "Now we finish it." Hidden vessels struck, concentrating fire on the exposed core of the enemy fleet. Ships shattered in spectacular bursts, probability layers recalculating as chaos became precise, surgical execution. Victory, narrow but complete, settled over the command chamber. Nathan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since arrival, he allowed himself a small, quiet smile. The fleet was safe. Colonies were saved. And the Virelians, stoic, disciplined, unyielding, were learning the value of improvisation. Matra studied him for a long moment. "You were right," she said softly, "about fear, about improvisation." Nathan nodded. "I don't always get it right, but I try." They watched the enemy retreat across the void, their once organized formation dissolving into chaos. Nathan realized something fundamental. Survival was not perfection. It was adaptability. And human ingenuity, messy, unpredictable, stubborn, could make a difference. The quiet returned, but it was no longer oppressive. It was measured, deliberate, alive with possibility. Nathan had arrived as a strategist chasing solutions. He would leave understanding life, courage, and leadership in a way no algorithm could calculate. The stars beyond Virelia Prime shimmered, signaling both the end of one battle and the inevitable beginning of the next. The calm that had settled over Virelia Prime after the first battle was deceptive. Nathan Cade had learned long ago that enemies rarely rested after a single defeat. The retreating fleet he had shattered would regroup, strike elsewhere, or find weaknesses he had not anticipated. And the Virelians, disciplined though they were, had yet to fully grasp the human approach to chaos. The next alert came quietly, almost imperceptibly. The central command panels hummed a low vibration through the living floor of the command chamber. Nathan felt it first in his chest. Something was approaching, not in waves but as a single, precise strike. "They are moving faster than predicted," an officer said. "No signature in slip space, only here at the edge of our detection." Nathan leaned over the interface, scanning the approaching vessels. "Not the full fleet," he muttered, "but something big, too precise to be a scouting group." Matra entered the chamber without ceremony, her long ears angled forward, eyes narrowing in thought. She did not speak at first, allowing Nathan to observe the subtle tension in her shoulders. She had learned something about improvisation in the first battle, and yet she remained cautious. "They've chosen a new tactic," she said finally. "They know we have adapted." Nathan nodded. "Then it's our turn to adapt again." The preparation. Nathan moved quickly. He recalibrated decoy arrays, adjusted fleet formations, and created multiple false signals across Virelia space. This time, he added layers of complexity, subtle false distress calls from key colonies, partial communications intercepted by enemy sensors, and simulated breakdowns of supply chains. "The human calls this," one officer began. "Chaos," Nathan said sharply. "The enemy expects perfection. Let them see what happens when perfection is denied." Matra studied him quietly. "And you are sure this will work?" "Not sure," Nathan admitted. "Confident enough to try, that's all a human ever is." The Virelian officers bristled at his casual phrasing, their ears flicking back in mild irritation. Nathan ignored them. Confidence, he had learned, often scared an enemy more than the deadliest weapon. The approaching fleet emerged from slip space in a single, solid formation. Unlike the previous chaotic waves, this fleet was disciplined, coordinated, and deadly precise. Nathan recognized immediately that these were the enemy's best ships, commanded by a tactician who had studied him, or at least the reports from the last engagement. "They've anticipated some of our moves," Nathan said. "Phase 1 won't be enough." Matra's eyes narrowed. "Then we must escalate." The battle begins. Signals flashed across the interface as the first shots were fired. Energy beams lanced across space, hitting shields and bouncing off with controlled precision. Nathan's human instincts told him that the enemy was probing for weak points, but this time, the probes were more calculated, almost intelligent. "Forward fleet reports multiple vectors," an officer said. "They are attacking from 3 directions simultaneously." Nathan's fingers moved quickly, manipulating the holographic layers. "Let them commit," he murmured. "Now we see who is overconfident." Signal ghosts activated, creating false duplicates of the Virelian fleet across multiple warp corridors. The enemy hesitated, confused by conflicting readings. Artificial flares ignited in near-perfect symmetry, creating temporary blindness in their targeting systems. Yet, despite these distractions, the enemy advanced relentlessly. Nathan gritted his teeth. "They're adapting faster than I expected," he muttered. "Good," Matra replied, voice calm but sharp. "Adaptation is their strength. Let us see if it can be outmatched." Nathan nodded. The next phase required daring, a controlled retreat designed not to flee but to manipulate the enemy into a trap. He activated the beacons, showing the illusion of retreat across key points of Virelia space. The enemy, confident in their superiority, pursued. The trap. As predicted, they took the bait. Virelian strike ships, hidden in masked orbits and cloaked corridors, emerged with surgical precision. Enemy vessels, overextended and unprepared for sudden concentrated fire, began to falter. Energy shields collapsed under sustained assault. Engines flared as weapons struck critical nodes. Nathan watched the projections, feeling the familiar tension in his stomach, the part of strategy he hated most. Lives hung in the balance, no calculation could account for every variable. Yet this time, the outcome was clear. The enemy's cohesion was breaking. "They're retreating, but not in panic," an officer observed. "They are reorganizing." Nathan shook his head. "Not yet, wait for Phase 3, we finish this now." Phase 3 was risky. It required exposing several key Virelian vessels as bait, luring the enemy into a final commitment. Nathan's own pulse quickened. Every officer in the chamber watched him, knowing the fate of billions of lives depended on the success of a human's gamble. "Ready," Nathan said, voice calm, almost conversational. "Now." The bait ships moved forward. The enemy surged. Hidden strike teams hit from unexpected angles. Their once perfect formation collapsed into chaos. The human element, unpredictable, adaptive, tipped the scales. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and the enemy commander's plan unraveled. Matra remained silent, observing, eyes sharp. When the final enemy ship was destroyed or forced into retreat, she exhaled quietly. Victory, narrow and costly, had been secured. Aftermath. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Nathan leaned back, rubbing his forehead. "Well," he muttered, "that went better than my worst nightmares." Matra stepped forward, her silver eyes meeting his. "You have changed the way we see war," she said quietly. "Humans, your approach, it is unsettling." Nathan smiled faintly. "Unsettling is sometimes exactly what keeps people alive." "Alive," she repeated. "Yes, that is true." Reports streamed in. Enemy fleets scattered, damaged, or retreating to distant sectors. Colonies were safe. Systems recalibrated. And yet Nathan felt the weight of what had happened. For every victory there had been loss, ships destroyed, lives ended. Human numbers mattered, but real people mattered more. "You did not hesitate," Matra said softly, studying him. "Not when the stakes became personal." Nathan shrugged. "Hesitation kills more than mistakes. I learned that the hard way." "And yet," she said, "you trusted your instincts." "Instincts and improvisation," Nathan replied. "Humans are messy. We survive because we adapt faster than our mistakes can catch us." Matra tilted her head, absorbing the lesson. "Your methods may never be standard, but they work." Nathan allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes, the unexpected saves more lives than tradition ever could. Resolution and human triumph. Days later, formal reports acknowledged Nathan's contributions. The Virelians, proud and meticulous, were careful in their praise, but the message was clear. Humanity had made a difference. Not by brute force, not by perfection, but by resilience, courage, and adaptability. Nathan declined a permanent advisory role. "I work best where no one expects me to belong," he explained. Matra accepted this without offense, a subtle nod recognizing the truth. Human value was often measured in disruption as much as skill. On the day of his departure, Nathan boarded his ship. Matra accompanied him to the docking platform. The planet's defense lattice shimmered faintly, repairing itself after the recent battle. "You will be remembered," she said. Nathan smiled. "Occasionally mentioned is enough." "You reminded us," Matra said softly, "that survival is not strength alone. It is adaptability. Leadership is not solitude, it is burden shared." "And fear?" Nathan asked. "Information," she said, "painful but useful." He nodded. "Good," he muttered. "I like a challenge." The ship lifted off, Virelia Prime shrinking beneath him. Nathan watched the stars stretch into streaks of light, feeling a strange sense of completion. He had arrived as a strategist, a human among aliens, tasked with impossible odds. He left knowing that human ingenuity, stubborn, messy, unpredictable, had saved billions of lives. Somewhere beyond the horizon, other threats waited, but Nathan Cade was ready, and for once he welcomed the unknown. As the ship sailed into the uncharted void, Nathan leaned back in his seat, relaxed for the first time in days. The universe was vast, dangerous, and endlessly surprising, and he had learned something crucial. Humans did not need perfection to survive. They only needed courage, adaptability, and the willingness to act when no one else could. He exhaled, letting the silence of space surround him. It was no longer watchful or oppressive, it was full of potential. Nathan smiled. "Good, I like potential."